The hatred between these family trees runs deep as we are inching closer to seeing the battle between Chris Eubank Jr. going up against Conor the Destroyer Benn on April 26th, live in Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London, England, in front of a what should be sold out crowd. As usual, I'll be handing this over to my co-hosts. Now, let's talk boxing.
The hatred runs deep between these two families. Of course, I am talking about the Benns versus the Eubanks, dating back in history to where the great Eubank Sr. defeated the great Nigel Benn in late round 9 in a TKO. Of course, they would have their rematch, the iconic rematch that was watched by more than 16.5 million people live. In that fight, we saw a split decision draw where many felt like Nigel Benn deserved the win. Now we're going to have an iconic fight, the third fight, but of course I am talking about their children. Chris Eubank Jr. will be facing Conor Benn April 26th in London.
We all know that Conor Benn got tested for PEDs back in 2022. So for me, this is an uphill battle for Conor Benn, especially he's moving up to 160. Granted, he's the younger guy by 7 years, but I just think that might be a little bit too much for him.
Yeah, I mean, we know that Conor Benn is a natural 147-pounder. He's a welterweight. And like you said, he has been inactive for almost 2 years, only having like 1 or 2 fights in between. Of course, we know Chris Eubank Jr., he's been a little bit more active. I feel like he's had a longer career, having 32 fights and only 25 knockouts with only 3 losses, really. That's not too bad. He has fought the likes of, Liam Smith and Billy Joe Saunders, so he knows that pedigree of championship caliber. He knows those great fighters. Nigel Benn was really on a hot streak, coming into the game, knocking everyone out, like the great Chris Algieri, of course. But eventually, the PEDs kind of set him back. Chris Eubank Jr. was supposed to be really his breakout fight. And then, it had to come to a pause because of the PEDs. Now we see them more heated than ever. It seems like it became personal. I feel like back then it was more for promotion. They had the perfect promotion because of the family ties, given that their fathers hated each other. But now I feel like it really has become personal. You see these guys always saying how much they want to rip each other's heads off.
I wouldn't be so much interested in a fight from a 147-pounder going up to 160. But since this is a bloodline-like rivalry, this is going to be a lot more interesting. Chris Eubank Jr. might be a little too big for him. It's just that there's weight classes for a reason. In middleweight, they pack a different type of lunch.
Definitely, but we also saw Chris Eubank Jr. been knocked out before. He got knocked out brutally by Liam Smith. He got dropped twice in the 4th round. Of course, he did have that rematch, and then he got Bomac, Terrence Crawford's coach, and he really came back and dominated that second fight. But again, we know his chin has been cracked. With someone like Conor Benn, who packs a hell of a punch, it all depends on how much his power comes up to the 160-pound weight division. Could he still bring that power that he had at welterweight and bring it to middleweight and still make it transpire? Or will, Chris Eubank Jr. just be the bigger man and really bully him in there? I really feel like at this point, I see Conor Benn bring the fresher fighter. Given that he has had time off, I still feel like, he's a little bit more hungry. I feel like he has more to prove. And I just feel stylistically, I don't know if it was the PEDs or not, but before the PED accusation, which he did clear up as of last year, I feel like he was always sharp. He had explosiveness. He kind of reminded me of Virgil Ortiz Jr., which there was mentions of them fighting near future before. But given that, if he comes back and looks the same as before the allegations, I feel like he will still be someone like Chris Eubank Jr., given that, he has the brute strength and he has just a perfect style to break down Chris Eubank Jr. But if the PEDs did have a play in this game, I feel like, given that the weight factor and, the fact that he hasn't been very active in his last couple fights and the last couple years, really, I feel like that could also lead to something like Chris Eubank Jr. getting the better of him and winning by knockout.
Now, let me ask you this. Do you think that the rivalry is real, or do you think that this is all for show just to sell tickets?
No, I definitely think there's hatred in there, man. I think they've both disrespected each other's families, and they've both, really downplayed each other's careers. I feel like at this point, it's all personal. I'm sure they will, have some type of respect after the fight. You know, depending especially on how it ends. You know, if there's a knockout, I feel like they're both going to respect each other. If it ends in a draw or if it gets close, they're still going to, you best believe we're going to see a rematch if it's close, because this fight is going to sell no matter what. The UK fans ride hard for both families. We know the Eubanks and the Benns have a lot of history. So we're just going to have to wait and see, man. But know what you guys think down below. Do you guys got Chris Eubank Jr. winning, or do you guys got the Destroyer, Conor Benn, coming back and winning in impressive fashion? Thank you guys again for tuning in. My name's Eric.
And I'm Alex.
And I'm your boy, Mac. Thank you guys once again for tuning into the Pound for Pound Boxing channel. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and we're out.